5 words. That's all it took. Did you grab the meat? This morning, your husband said that he would grab the ground beef on his way home from work because you're making tacos for dinner. So when he gets home, you pause your cooking, you greet him with a hug, you ask him how his day was, and then you ask about the beef. Suddenly, you see his face get tense, his tone changes, and he snaps at you. I forgot. You could have reminded me. I had a huge meeting at the end of the day, and you knew that. But still, the first thing you do is jump on me when I walk in the door. And then he storms upstairs. After working with women and couples for years, I can tell you this reaction, it's not about the ground beef. And it's definitely not about you jumping on him when he walked in the door. What's actually happening in these moments is something that most women have never been taught. I am Lindsay, this is Loving with Intention, and what I'm about to share completely transformed how my clients handle these defensive moments in their marriages and their husbands actually start snapping less. So let's dive in. When your husband reacts like this, it's super common to think he's being such a jerk or clearly he has anger issues. And I get it. When somebody explodes over forgetting the beef, it feels like they must have a serious problem, right? But here's what's fascinating about our sweet, sweet nervous systems. When your husband snaps like this, and maybe you don't think that's exploding, but maybe he does. Maybe he starts yelling about the beef. So when he does snap like this, whether it's a big explosion or snapping at you, something so much deeper is happening. The thing is, when someone's reaction seems totally disproportionate to what just happened, it usually, like almost always, means that something from the past is being triggered. It's not actually about what's happening right now. So maybe your husband grew up in a home where forgetting things meant that he would get in trouble or he would get criticized. Maybe one of his parents said something like, "You're useless, you never remember anything. I might as well just do everything myself." So now, when you ask about the ground beef he was going to pick up, his nervous system doesn't actually hear your casual question. It hears a critical voice from his childhood. Notice I said his nervous system. He doesn't consciously hear that voice from childhood. And this is where it gets super interesting. When you ask that question, your husband gets a literal feeling in his body. So maybe there's like a tension in his chest, a pit in his stomach, a tense jaw. This is the same feeling that he got as a kid when that happened. And when this feeling happens in his body, it's like a literal time warp. And he might not even notice that this feeling is happening. So time warp happens. His nervous system, it can't tell the difference between what's currently happening now with you and what happened to him as a child. All it remembers is this feeling in the body, this sensation, and that this sensation means something bad is happening. So his nervous system actually interprets this as an attack, because when his parent used to ask him a seemingly casual question, just like what you just asked him, there was always criticism that followed. There was insults, the shaming, the blaming, the making him wrong. And this all literally happens in a split second in his body. The body sensations, the feelings, the stories, the reaction, it's like boom. Before he or you even knows what's happening, his nervous system is already in protection mode. So a quick pause here, because if you're resonating with this already and you've had this experience and you want to learn exactly how to look under these reactions and start bringing more peace and calm into your relationship, I created my Be the Change workshop that I love so much, specifically for women like you. It is modeled after the very first session of my love journey process, and I will walk you through the exact process I use with my private coaching clients to help them wonder and look under so they can start changing these painful patterns and moments. So you can just comment change below and I will share the link with you, or you can click the link in the description box too. But we will get back to looking underneath what's going on, because these next parts are so crucial. So when he reacts and snaps at you, he is actually reacting to so much more. The hurt, the sadness, the beliefs they developed as a child, like I can't do anything right or I'm not good enough. Does your husband know in the moment that this isn't about the ground beef, that the reason he's reacting is about so much more? Maybe, but most often, honestly, no. When I'm working with my clients and we work through these kind of arguments and upsetting situations in our sessions, we always find that there's something so much deeper at the root. And when I say it's not actually about the ground beef, that's not to diminish any present day feelings that he has or any frustrations within your relationship. I am talking about the reaction that seems really disproportionate to the event. And this absolutely is not to excuse his reaction or say that it's okay to react like that, because it's just coming from an unhealed wound. And when we really understand what's happening underneath these moments, when we can see these moments through this new lens, this is when everything starts to shift. This is when healing starts to happen. This is where you can start to change these patterns. What probably happens in these scenarios is that you end up reacting too. So maybe he storms off after he says those things and you're calling after him. You said you would pick it up, or what's the big deal? Or maybe you always overreact about things like this. I'm just trying to cook dinner. Or maybe you just totally shut down and you go silent, which is a reaction as well. When you turn on this new lens, instead of reacting, you can start to turn towards your husband and see him. Maybe you say, I'm guessing that felt like I was criticizing you, or honey, it's no problem that you forgot it. It sounds like you had a really busy day. I can just use chicken tonight. No worries at all. That right there, you're not just speaking to your husband standing in front of you. You're speaking to that little boy who really needed to hear that it was okay that he forgot things, that he was still loved and a good person, even though he forgot. Every time you do this, a little piece of healing happens. Even if your husband has no idea what's under there or what's happening in the moment, or you don't know the exact story, because what I'm sharing about their parent being critical, it could be anything that created this wound. And remember, we all have these triggers. Even if you had what feels like a great childhood, triggers come in all shapes and sizes and don't mean that something terrible happened. And this isn't just childhood either. It could be from past relationships, friendships, coworkers. We collect these nervous system responses all throughout our lives. Now, this is super important. Responding with love in the moment doesn't mean that you're letting the hurtful behavior slide. The truth is, if you try to address his tone or his defensiveness or his criticism while he's still triggered, that's like trying to reason with a smoke alarm that's going off. You are way more likely to be heard if you address those pieces outside the triggered moment. In the triggered moment, you're just trying to get back to a regulated state. And here's something that most people miss. This requires getting really curious about your nervous system too, because the second that he reacts, your body is likely going to have its own response. So maybe your heart starts racing, maybe your chest gets tight or your stomach drops. Most of us, like I said, just blow right past these cues, and that's exactly how we end up in a back and forth spiral of criticism, defensiveness, shutting down, all the hurtful things. So one of the most powerful things that you can do is practice getting curious about what's under his reactions outside of these triggered moments. Maybe like right now, reflecting on a past situation. When you are calm and regulated, this is the time to reflect and think about things, because the more that you practice curiosity when you're calm, the easier it becomes to access that understanding inside that heated moment. And again, the coolest thing is that I am always saying here at Loving with Intention, ding, 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 is that he doesn't have to be doing this work with you for you to start to see change. I work with women who either want to do the work on their own or their husband just isn't interested. So thank goodness that doesn't mean that things are hopeless. You changing your steps in your usual dance, it changes the entire dance. He can't just keep doing the same old dance. If you are changing your steps and starting to get curious and meeting him with love, everything changes. And I also always want to make it super clear that just because you respond with understanding, that doesn't mean he's immediately going to shift his reaction. It might, and it also takes consistency. It's like learning any new dance. There's going to be stepped on toes, missed beats along the way. You're not going to be able to do it every time, but with time and practice, these moments get easier and easier to navigate together. And one last thing that's super important, when your husband gets defensive, it is always worth checking in with yourself too. Were you actually being critical? Was there a tone in your voice? Because if there was, that is something that you can own and apologize for. This is not about getting it perfect. It's about both of you growing in understanding, taking responsibility for your part, and creating a safer space for each other. It's a really beautiful thing. So if you are ready to start understanding what's really happening in these moments and create lasting change in your marriage, my workshop, again, Be the Change, is so for you. After my partner and I broke up and got back together, I spent about 1 billion hours learning how to create a thriving relationship. And I created this workshop because I wish I had known exactly where to start so that I could start making changes back in the hard days. You'll learn the exact steps to look under these painful reactions in your relationships: defensiveness, criticism, silent treatments, all of it, both yours and his. The truth is, there's even more than just an old wound under there. There's actually beautiful, valid, unmet needs under every quote-unquote relationship poison, and this workshop helps you see exactly what those things are in a really personalized way. You can only change things when you know these things. This is the same process that I use, again, in my first session with clients. I designed this specifically for women who want to transform. these triggering moments into opportunities for healing and connection. So again, just comment change below or click the link in the description box to get started today, and it's going to be amazing. So just remember, you do not need your husband to do this work with you. When you understand what's happening beneath the surface, everything starts to shift. Truly, I've seen it in my relationship. I've seen it with the women that I work with. It's so real. So let's get back to that ground beef moment. When your husband snaps at you about forgetting it and storming upstairs, you now know it was not about the meat. Under that reaction is a little boy who maybe learned that forgetting things meant he wasn't good enough or that he was a failure for making mistakes, and now you have the power to respond differently. Instead of getting pulled into that old dance of defensiveness and criticism and ending up in this silent evening that feels awful, you know your kids can feel it, it just doesn't feel good, you can instead pause, take a few deep breaths, and remember, this is about so much more than the tacos. Maybe tonight you make chicken instead, and then later when you're both calm, you can have a genuine conversation about what happened, because that's where the real magic happens. Not in the heated moment, but in all the small moments where you choose understanding over reacting. And who knows, maybe next time he forgets something, instead of storming upstairs, he'll feel safe enough to simply say, I'm sorry, I forgot. That's what happens when we start to create safety in our relationships. We all get to be human, forget the ground beef sometimes, and still know that we're loved. I'm celebrating you so much for choosing to love with intention, and I thank you so much for being here. The video on the screen is a deep dive into how to bring up hurt feelings in a way that sets you up for success to be heard in those calm moments. So you'll definitely need that. Remember that nothing changes if nothing changes. I am sending you so much love into your day. Comment change below to dive into the workshop, and let's have a super intentional week.